And I found that some people can handle it and some people can't.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people do not want to know the truth because it's painful.
Yeah.
It's scary.
Hey, what's up? Welcome back to the CashPT Lunch Hour podcast. I'm your host, Aaron LeBauer, and today my special guest is Alan Ling. Alan is more than just a special guest. He is part of the reason I'm standing here speaking to you. Alan is one of my good friends, but he was one of my clinical instructors. We had a 6 month clinical rotation at Elon. And I was like, I don't know where the hell I'm going, but I'm not driving 2 hours away to a clinic I don't believe in. And I had met Alan prior to that and ended up working with him at Physical Therapy Innovations in El Cerrito for 6 months. And Alan has been a huge inspiration to me. If you've read my book, The CashPT Blueprint, the book, he was just reminding me, there's like a whole page and a half about some of my experience with him in there. So, Alan, thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate you being here.
Hey, Aaron, it's great to be here. And, I'm a big fan of yours. So,
Awesome. Thank you.
yeah.
Well, do you remember when we first met?
Yes, we were at one of the APTA functions in a private
Mm-hmm.
practice. And you were kind of in the background, but you're so tall, you can't miss, I couldn't miss you. And we were just talking away. And then
Yeah.
and we just got together and you were saying, hey, I'm looking for an affiliation. And I go, hey, you should come and hang out with us. And you made it happen. We actually contacted the school and
Right.
I don't think I don't think you did most of the groundwork, but we were able to get you over to California.
Yeah.
And I think the schools, in my opinion, should work with the students on where they want to go, not try to dictate
Yeah.
every place they're going to. It
Yeah.
was a great fit.
Yeah, it was a great
Great
fit.
fit.
Ours was kind of dictatorial. It was like, you can have these four things, but if you create something, it's like, you can't create, like, I even created one that was local in Greensboro, and they're like, but you can't do that. That's not fair. I'm like, well, you said I could do it, and I know people at the hospital. Anyways, but I remember I was at PPS, and I was a student, and I can't remember the topic, but it was something about healthcare, and I'm sure it was of interest to me. And I was like asking questions.
Yeah,
I was
you
like,
were.
I was like, you can't mean that because that's not how it really is. And I think you came up to me at the end, and
Yeah.
we hit it off. And you were like, you should come work for me, or work with us as a student on a rotation. I was like, yeah, but I live in North Carolina, and I own a house, and I'm married, and all these things. And you were like, yeah, but you should still do it.
It was like I didn't use any. I used my Ben Kenobi powers, not my Darth Vader ones on you.
I know, I know, but it was great. I think it was really it was one of those things that it was really hard for Andra and I don't know if I'm sure you know this because you're so intuitive, but it was really hard for us. And she stayed in Greensboro. We had a dog and a business, and I went to California. And looking back, she was like, "Well, I should have come with you." And I'm like, "Yeah, but it was really difficult." But it was the thing that I chose was the best fit for me and the best long-term fit for me, rather than just something like my other option was to drive 2.5 hours to somewhere in the clinic. It would just be 6 months of hell probably. And even their mission on the website was something that's just not Aaron LeBauer. It was just completely different to me for a lot of reasons. So I'm glad I found you and ran into you, and I thank you for
Me
that.
too.
The reason another shout out to one of my other clinical instructors, Bob from Atlanta Sports Medicine, was the one that got me to PPS, and that's why I was there in that room with you. So, so yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things where, I don't know. We were meant to hang out, and it's been too long, and I haven't hung out with you in a long time. So I just wanted
We had you
to
come
share some
back and
praise with you.
teach. We had you come back and
Yep.
teach for us one time.
Yeah,
Remember?
that was a lot of
And that
fun.
was great. No,
Yeah,
this is good
yeah,
it's good to continue the professional collaboration.
yeah,
And I was about to kind of almost retire but 2020 hit. And I was like, I think I'm gonna have to do this for a little longer, not for financial reasons either,
yeah,
because right now, and this, we need leadership.
yeah,
We need
yeah,
we need to lead out of this pandemic, all of us. And I have responsibility to 20 people who are at my practice, And what I found, and you'll probably also see what's going on, is that people are looking for leadership,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes they're not going to follow, and it's okay. But if you're going to be working at PTI, you have to follow what I'm doing, and I'm open to feedback, and just like you are. But if people just don't believe, they can go someplace
Right.
else, and that's what we have to do. We have to circle the wagons, and only the true believers, and we're not talking about a cult, but true believers have to kind of group together and help each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I appreciate what you're doing is you created this whole culture and environment of service to patients first. And I think that should be the only model we ever should have had in this country, but it's been capitalized, and we have to live with it and try to work with it. But but please go on. Sorry, I'm starting to go on my
Yeah,
soapbox
no,
already.
that's okay. I think, I mean, it brings up a lot of questions, and the one thing I want to share before I get into asking you some questions is that you're the one of the pretty much the first or only people that believe that I could, start a business, cash-based practice as a physical therapist. And so, one, there's thank you for that, but two, I want everyone to know, like, basically, Alan was like, you're not going to treat a full caseload because I know you know how to treat patients. You're going to hang out with me and learn the business of physical therapy, and the project I have for you is to create a business plan. And I created a business plan and presented it to you, and you're like, totally sounds plausible. It's gonna
And you
work.
were so nervous. You were so nervous. I go, what have we been together 6 months? Why are you
Yeah,
nervous showing this to me? And it turned out, I think you worked so hard at it. You didn't want to have me shoot it down. And I said,
yeah,
dude, it works. It's
yeah,
going to be awesome. And look at you. You've also kind of have a hybrid model of consulting, and so you didn't put all your eggs in one basket. And I thought that was you. That was
yeah,
your thing, because you didn't talk to me about the hybrid model.
yeah.
That you came about that on your own accord.
Yeah, that came up after a few years. People started asking me, Aaron, can you help me? Can you help me with this? And I was like, yeah. And then someone was like, hey, what do I owe you? And I was like, what do you owe me?
$1
And that,
million.
I know, $1 million. That became, and that was the day, like one of the days the light bulb went on. I was like, oh, other people, more than just 5 other people want to do this. People are actually serious. But it was until I really met you and went through it. Everyone told me, yeah, it's not really possible. No one's going to pay more than their copay for PT. And I mean, it's a different mindset. There's a different structure. I think
Totally different structure.
there's room for everyone. I mean, everyone needs it, but I do still believe whether it's insurance or not, people are going to pay for what they value. And I mean, I think what we did at your clinic was high value. I mean, it's and the way that you lead your team and treat patients. I mean, I think there was the one thing that sticks out in my mind. I know you remember this is that day that we were treating the woman who had cancer, but she didn't know
Oh
it.
yeah. Oh God, that was what I'm glad you were there.
Yeah.
Just and how we handled it. Well, I don't know. You remember? I remember
I
that
was like,
today.
how are you going to handle this? But it was in her note from the physician, and you assumed she already
She
knew.
knew. Yeah, it was. I remember that moment. You were standing behind me, and I said, "Well, your diagnosis of cancer. that's why you're having some pain." She goes, "My cancer came back,"
Yeah.
and it's like you looked at me, and I looked at you like, "Oh boy!" And she goes, then she burst out in tears. She goes, "What am I going to do? I have a vacation. Next week I'm going to go to Mexico and drink." And I put my hand on her, and I said, I'll tell you what, you can drink as much as you want now because it's not going to matter. And then we all started laughing. She went from crying to laughing. And I go, I guess, she goes, yeah, I guess that's the way it is. I said, yep. And then I went and called her doctor. She goes, you didn't tell her that she had cancer? Her cancer came back. And then it turned out later on, it was actually the best, just to be able to be human for a
Mm-hmm.
second.
Yeah.
And I wasn't trying to, make light of it, but it was being real. And
Yeah.
at that moment, we just have to be real with people.
Yeah.
And the horror of the whole thing, and she died, shortly, like within like a month or two after that.
Yeah.
But I think she
Well,
drank a lot too, maybe,
yeah.
which was
You
good.
had, well, you are also like related your story
Oh
to
yeah,
her as well,
I
and
don't
you had
remember that part
cancer.
of it, but
Yeah,
yeah.
I remember that, and I was like, oh wow, I don't have that experience to connect with her at this moment, but you had like a form of tumor in
Gastrointestinal
your stomach, right?
stromal tumor. Yeah, I had a. I can't show the picture
Was
on
it
here,
one of the
but
ones with
anyway,
like teeth and hair and all those things? Or was
yeah, I
it?
had like a little hands and tail. But yeah, I literally burst out a little stomach burster versus a chest burster. But I was actually when you saw me, it was like 2007, but it had only been 2 years
Yeah.
since I was diagnosed with terminal cancer. And basically, I was asymptomatic and in remission at the time that we met.
Mm-hmm.
And here I am. And now it's been, freaking 16 years and I'm still here.
Yeah.
So again, cancer is not a death sentence. You still have, everybody still has a chance. And now with immunotherapy, the new therapies coming out, you even have a better chance. Even if you're stage 4, they can reverse it.
Wow.
So I really highly recommend anybody go to one of your high-end medical centers, whether it's Mayo or Stanford or UC San Francisco. Get the immunotherapy if you have cancer, because don't muck around with the chemo. The chemo, it's a race against time. What kills your good cells or what kills your bad cells? Which ones comes first?
Yeah.
But the immunotherapy seems to be really the key to everything now. So
Yeah.
advances in medicine, right? That's
Yeah. It's amazing.
like our wonderful vaccine that's coming out.
I know it is. It's crazy, and I mean, I even remember like a few years ago, I had a patient who had a hip surgery, and I was like, I was going in on Tuesday, and I went in. I was like, all right, I'll go before lunch on Wednesday. It's a great, I'd seen him for a long time, helped him, but he had like a vascular necrosis from a fracture when he was in his 20s.
Mm-hmm.
Had to get it when he was 30. I went in at like 10:30 a.m. He's already discharged. I was like, wait a minute. I mean, 6 years earlier at PT school, you didn't get discharged that quickly from like a hip replacement, and those things just move so fast. It's crazy.
Everything is anterior. I hardly ever see anybody with an anterior hip procedure now. They just basically go home and then they don't see me, or they see me for something unrelated to the hip because it was so good. They feel all their other pain.
I got a couple questions for you that I think
yes, sir.
Is something that I think a lot of people are gonna get some huge value from now that they know a little bit more about you. But you mentioned this about COVID and leadership, but even before COVID, like you're an incredible leader, and I think there was one quality about you. Yeah, I mean, there's one quality about you that people like. There's one part that's like people like don't believe you because it's like, well, this is too good to be true. It's almost like that I've experienced this with you myself, standing next to you. It's like you're like Alan's like so giving. There's something about this that works for the right people. That remember, we've had this conversation and people are like, but wait a minute, no. That's like it's almost like is he real? Is he real? But I think that's part of your leadership style. What is it about like? I think the term leadership came up to me a few years ago, and I was like, oh, no. I mean, there's a team captain. Like how do you be a leader as a boss versus a leader of your peers? And I think there's a difference in there. Can you shed some light on like what are some of the things that you do with your employees, or how you communicate that help you kind of lead all 20 of your employees through the pandemic and some of the other things that you've experienced?
Well, part of it is using appropriate humor. Mm-hmm. I use a lot of inappropriate humor, but if you're going to be a leader, you better use some appropriate humor. And in the face of something looking really, really grim, it's important to keep everybody calm and make sure that you're not blowing smoke up anybody's rectum, mm-hmm. and let people know what your plans are. What are you planning next? People need to know what's the next. What do we do next? What's next? What's next? What's next? And I think if you can kind of help write the future and be accurate, by the way, I was reading 100 articles a night trying to figure out and curate what was going to be happening. And everything I predicted, everything I predicted had come true, but I had to pick the right articles. And so I also said, if we do, the vaccine may not come for 2 years, but if it comes earlier, then maybe by spring of 2022, it'll be over. And that's what's happening is as long as everyone supposedly gets all the vaccine, by 2022, we will have more control over everything that's going on. And so I had predicted, and some of my colleagues who are actually paying attention remembered that. They said, you actually predicted everything that was going to happen. And that is how you get leadership, people to follow, is that you're accurate in your vision of the future. So when you talk about leadership, part of it is you got to research everything and make sure that what comes out of your mouth is going to be what is actually happening. And then people follow the vision, right? Because you seem to have some foresight. But the problem with our leadership now is everything that's coming out of everybody's mouth. It keeps changing because we don't have scientists in charge of leading. You know, my background is bacteriology or microbiology and immunology was my undergrad degree. And on top of now, you know, being a PT, that's almost the best of two worlds when it comes down to leading physical therapists out of this thing. Did you know we have like 12 IQ air purifiers? Those are big, huge honking purifiers in our clinic.
Wow.
We got those for smoke because all the wildfires, and it turns out they actually filter out COVID particles.
Oh, nice.
So we have 12 of them in our clinic. We have not had one infection related to our clinic going to patients or employees. And that's an extra layer on top of just double masking. Yeah. So we've been very, very fortunate to have way ahead before everybody else starting to do all these things. And I think, again, people have to either appreciate it or they think I'm a wacko. Right. All right. And if they think I'm a wacko, that's fine.
Was there like a point at which you were like, all right, I know you already had the air filters, right?
We had air filters, but yeah, with the wildfires, we had them about probably, you know, over 2.5 years ago. We had like 3 of them.
Yeah. So was this like something that you were like, we should do this, or was there some like other information organization saying, hey, this is what we recommend you do?
That was the Ling thing. Yeah. There was I'm not following the CDC guidelines. I have to go beyond what CDC does. CDC just sent our kids back to school unvaccinated.
Yeah.
So I had an employee who no longer is my employee now telling me I should follow CDC guidelines. And I'm thinking, these are the people who told us we didn't need to wear masks. I said, not following I have to make my own guidelines, and I'm making my own guidelines right now and that's what leadership is. Yeah. Doing all the right things when people are telling you all sorts of other things to do. You have to make the call, and pretty much we're all on our own. This is, you know, we don't realize, but we're in World War III. This is our World War III. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
How do you communicate that effectively to people? Like, is there a way where are you emailing them? Are you meeting with the group, the team every week? How do you communicate it to them in a way that they understand it without them overreacting or like misunderstanding? Is there some things that you're doing?
I think everybody has their own filter, and we do have monthly meetings. In my management, I have a management team of, you know, 2 of our people who run the business side, you know, my office manager, my finance officer, and then 2 other clinic managers, Lee Yek and Jeremiah Huey. We meet as a group, and then I kind of voice to them what's going on with every single profanity I could throw out. But what happens, we have to be honest about what's happening. And so, you know, there's the monthly meetings, which are more curated information, followed by the weekly meetings with the management team. And of course, if you have a smaller team, meet with them weekly. Yeah.
That's great. I remember one of the first things that we did when I came to work there was the 4 fatal flaws of leaders, right? Do you remember that?
Oh, God.
Do you remember what mine was? I can't remember what all 4 of them are, but I remember what mine is. Do you remember?
I don't remember what yours was.
It was wanting to be like the approval or
wanting to be liked too much. Well, that was the same as me. Yeah. We had the same problem. Yeah. We want to be liked.
Afraid of not being liked, you know?
Yeah.
And I was like, I saw that and I was like, no way. But over the last few years, I've seen it and seen how that affects me in my judgment, and not bad judgment. I have had bad judgment. I mean, I put a paperclip in the outlet in computer lab in 9th grade. That was bad judgment. But you know, like, how do I, you know, like, what do I decide to do? And I've seen that come around. So I just thought that was interesting. Do you remember what the other 3 ones were?
Oh gosh, that's been so long now.
It's been 15 years since you gave it.
I know. It's like that static has passed. But I do remember something where it's about maybe something that had to do with being too strict. Yeah. And then not strict enough. And there's some other thing where being some lack of information, something like that. I think those things to me come to mind when people are not good leaders. Is, you know, they don't have the information. They're overpowering their employees, not listening, and then being overwhelmed with too much input, and again, maybe that's kind of morphing into trying to be liked too much, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like when you're afraid of what people are going to think, then you don't always tell them the truth.
You know, I have learned that I always tell the truth at work.
Mm-hmm.
And people, I said, if you have a question, just come right up to me. I will tell you what I'm thinking at that time. And I found that some people can handle it and some people can't.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people do not want to know the truth because it's painful.
Yeah.
It's scary. And then you have to temper what you say because you don't want to freak people out. And that's another thing with the pandemic issue. We had one staff member, only one. He was having dinner indoors with a bunch of people from another workplace that he did not know, and he got a breakthrough infection.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't happen from work. He came back to work. Thank God we had the air purifiers. He didn't get anybody else sick. He had to be out for 10 days per the guidelines, right? He came back and he started telling some patients, and what do you think the patients were doing?
Oh,
Freaking out. But he was fine because they're not educated. People don't know what's going on. And if they do know what's going on, they still don't trust what's going on, right? So I spent an hour talking to one of the guys who's freaking out because it turned out he was flying home to his parents the next day and he did not want to bring it to him. And so I said, look, there's no guarantee that you're not going to get an infection, but we got the air purifiers there. He is not transmissible when he came back. So the whole point is we did everything we could to keep you safe. I'm sorry, you have to actually know about it. But had he not known about it, what do you think would have happened? Nothing. Turned out he was fine. He was fine. Everyone's fine. I was able to tell him, just being real. I said, there's so much going on. We cannot keep track of what to do, when to tell patients, if we even need to tell them. And it turns out you don't need to tell anybody if they're not at risk.
Right. It's like one of those ethical dilemmas. Do I tell people just because they feel like they need to know, but if you do, then they're freaking out. And like, did they actually need to know that? And like,
they didn't need to know.
you know.
So, but that's the other thing about lying or just telling them what they need to know.
Admitting the truth, right?
Or are you hiding truth, or are you just not telling them something because it really doesn't really matter anyway? Right. Like telling everybody they're going to die someday is not necessary for therapeutic health. You don't need to know.
And I do think there's an aspect of that where it's like, am I going to tell people something different because of how they might perceive me versus, but when I'm a leader, I need to tell them, if someone doesn't trust me or believe in our mission, like they shouldn't be on our team, so I don't need to hide what I'm thinking. But sometimes what I'm thinking and the way it comes out isn't always what they need to hear either.
Yeah, right? Leadership has a lot to do with and I used to have, my mouth would just spout all sorts of things coming out. And now I've realized with age and some more wisdom that I do have to edit what I have to say, but not to the point where it comes out disingenuous or contrived. I'm still very real about what I have to say. But now I realize that there's how the delivery is super important, and at one time I got, of course, very upset with my staff because half the air purifiers were not on. They were someone literally pulled out the plug, and they just shut it off, and I go, I'm sorry, but is that noise bothering you? Because you can always hear the noise of the ventilation going in your mouth. Maybe if you're conscious enough. I said, turn those damn things on. And I almost threw one of those Tom Cruise tantrums.
Yeah.
I said, I don't believe what you guys, I just cannot. I spent thousands and thousands of dollars doing this. We're the only ones that are doing this. I know it sounds crazy, but this is going to keep you safe. And I need these things on. And then it's been on ever since. Yeah. But sometimes that's another thing about leadership. Go ahead and throw a fit. Fear is good. If it's going to help everybody, throw some fear in there. Actually, I talked to Steve Jobs. I used to work at Pixar as one of their physical therapists, as you know. And Steve Jobs told me, make everybody afraid a little bit.
Yeah.
And this is while I was standing next to the urinal at Pixar. I was like, I said, my staff doesn't listen to me. He goes, you got to make them afraid a little bit. Yeah. That was urinal education.
That's a great pearl of wisdom. So how do you, what are some of the things that you do to motivate your staff or retain people? Because I know that they can get jobs anywhere, and it's not cheap to live in the Bay Area.
Appropriate monetary rewards. Mm-hmm. and whether it be the 8 to 10% raise that, across the board that you give everybody, or it's the bonuses that you give people, you have to reward appropriately.
Yeah.
You can't just reward someone for just showing up and doing just their bare minimum job. It has to be something extraordinary. Like now we reward our CIs. We pay them clinical instruction bonuses because they have to take extra time to do all the teaching. So now they get pretty nice bonuses too for doing that now.
Yeah.
So that's
like
extra.
An extra couple $100, or like we're talking.
Oh no, it's like almost $250 a week.
Wow.
I know. So they're motivated to do a better job. And oh yeah, we have all these little rules like, okay, if you fire your student, that's the end of your bonus. You don't keep getting bonuses if you fire your students, which means that you have to train up the student. The other thing that we have is that they have to be productive within like week 3. That means they have to have patients on their schedule and cranking.
Yeah.
So there was some weird stuff going on where some of our students were being coddled. And I said, what are you doing? If you are raising your own child, they would not be walking until they're 5. I said, you guys have to stop. And that was one of my leadership kind of things coming up. What are you doing? So it's like, then I realized, oh, I'm the old guy.
Right.
Because my kids are 30 and 28. I am the old guy now. It's like, no wonder they're scared of me. No wonder I come across kind of harsh sometimes.
But you do it with a smile and a laugh, and it works.
Oh, I do. I was like, what are you doing? Your kid will not be walking. Your kid will be like emotionally, disabled if you don't start training them up and building some confidence.
Yeah.
And yes, so instilling confidence in my staff. That's part of leadership too.
That's great. You mentioned like giving them raises. Like, how do you keep giving people raises, and how do you pay them what they?
It comes out of my butt. Can I say that on your podcast? Yeah. It literally comes out of my butt. Yeah, my butt to their mouth.
Insurance, I know, but insurance is like decreasing, right?
You could find ways to decrease your costs. Yeah. We already own all our own equipment. We just have to maintain and fix them. Yes, everything keeps going up. I mean, like I said, our student program helps keep us in business now. Because we don't pay the students full salaries and benefits and everything. So that's the only thing that probably keeps us in the doors open. So our student program, we need at least 2 or 3 students, probably almost 11 months out of the year. So it become the most important thing is to train our clinicians to be great clinical instructors, and for whoever's coming through our clinic to be good enough to work at our clinic as well. Since you've been there, Aaron, I'm down to basically almost 1 clinic site right now. But in that clinic site, we have 14 clinicians working. Wow. 14. I think when you were there, we might have had 7 or 8. Yeah. So now everything's
put people on the porch or somewhere else, or
everywhere. No, we have to build. We built an outdoor waiting room. We had to build an outdoor waiting room in the parking lot. We have valet parking because there's no parking. Yeah. So there's all the expenses keep going out, and my staff keep wondering how it works. But as you knew back then, I had real estate, so I don't have as much real estate now. I'm selling everything off, but I'm at the tail end of wealth building. I don't have to accumulate more wealth. What I need to accumulate more is more sanity, right? So that's what's happening now.
That's awesome. So by leveraging the real estate of owning your location, owning a lot of the equipment that you have, leveraging students, and like you're not. I mean, when I was there, I got paid a stipend. So are you still paying your students a stipend?
We can't afford it now. Yeah. So it all goes to the staff, because guess what? The students come and go. Yeah. We have very, very, very few of them actually stay. So it's like, if out of every 10 that we do, we might be able to recruit 1. Yeah. So we could do 20 students a year and get 1 of them to sign on. And the one that signed on is really the rare person who actually has roots in the Bay Area. They actually want to live there. And when they found out the housing is beyond reach, they may move.
Yeah, and so we have. Get me to stay.
I couldn't even get you to stay. So and by the way, if you had bought in the Bay Area back then, you would have been sitting on a bank. Your house would be your bank. That would be your retirement.
I would have been barely able to afford it too.
Oh, you would have been able to make it. It would have been able to happen. We've gone through some interesting patches, but it's always the whole thing about reinventing yourself, right?
Yeah.
So, and as you know, I'm doing pretty well considering I'm a novice in the entertainment industry,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
That's
we're
awesome.
doing,
I was going to ask about that.
yeah.
Um,
So,
so tell
yeah.
us,
So
like, what is it like? You're not only owning a clinic, but you've written a couple comic books and created some
right. I have a
characters
comic
and
book publishing
music.
company, and then I have an agent now who's going to try to pitch a couple of our intellectual properties down to studios.
Uh-huh.
And that's an interesting process. And then I'm in the process of getting another agent because my agent's very picky about what he wants to pitch.
Right.
But there's other stuff that I have that could be pitchable to somebody else who says, "Oh, this is cool. I like this stuff too." So it's always good to have diversity. Like you have diversity in your practice model.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's nothing wrong with having a bigger diversity in your life model and how you want to do things.
Yeah,
so
that's awesome.
Yeah.
How do you build yourself like time to go record? Like, did you draw the comics or that's an artist? Yeah.
Delegation. So I do the storyboards. So I sketch out what I want the panels to look like, close-up shots, far shots, put this in the background, all this stuff, give them reference photos, and the artists kind of go to work.
Yeah.
So I've done up to like I'm doing like 5 projects at the same time right now. So we have all the plates spinning there, and that keeps my brain happy. And then treating patients, of course, grounds me. Yeah. It's really great. After 33 years now of being a physical therapist, it's almost like, it's like so easy to get people better, and just knowing what path to put them on. And I have great residents. There are, let me tell you, the PT students coming out now, they're just extremely good. So
that's
yeah,
awesome. That's great. You so you said basically you got time to do all this that most people are like, I don't have time. How could you do all that? Because you delegate. So you're delegating stuff like drawing in the comics, but also work at the clinic too, right?
Everything has to come and be an extension of yourself. And the hardest part, as you know, is to find the first employee to do that. And then you can pull away a little bit and do some more stuff. And then adding on and adding on and adding. It's almost like you have to grow to become a fat amoeba and then cut yourself in half and then do the other thing. But that's what I did for the first 10 years. Just work 80 hours a week, hire somebody, cut down to 40, work 80 hours a week. And I kept doing that. And it was really great that worked when you're younger, but not when you're older.
Yeah, that's awesome. You've mentioned this to me before, and I think it fits in right here. At some point you told me, Aaron, I've really never had to fire anyone. I could just convince them to quit.
Yeah.
Can you
you want to know about that?
Yeah.
Because I just did that.
A little bit more about that. Like, instead of just like, hey, you're fired, like, what is the conversation like, or what is it you say to people that gets them to realize that, they're not a good fit for you and your business?
Okay. Because I just did that. And I hope he'll probably be listening to this podcast or not, because he doesn't believe in what I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah. So what was like, and I know like we could go back and talk about someone 10 years ago, but it's like, what's the conversation like? Is it like, hey, it sounds like you're not, like this isn't the right place for you, or it seems like you're not happy here, what versus like your performance isn't hitting these metrics. I think
once the mojo is gone and the love affair is over between two people, then if the person shows signs of malcontent, it's time to go. You should always be happy to go to work. Mm-hmm. You should always be going and having fun at work. It should never feel like you have to tiptoe around work. If you have to tiptoe around work, if I have to go in and feel like I have to tiptoe around my own clinic, there's something wrong. And I think for anybody who's out there listening to this podcast, if you're not comfortable going to work and having to be in there 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours a day, you're not helping anybody. You're not helping anyone. Your patients are going to, suffer. They don't get the best of you. It's just like a marriage. If you're not in a good marriage, you could try to hang in there as long as you can, but ultimately you got to get out. It's just better for people. You have to know when to quit and cut your losses. Yeah. So the magic word, see, that's how do you get someone to leave your practice peacefully and without too much damage? What the old fashioned way is to terminate people and just let them know, hey, here's a severance package. And, you know, I really appreciate what you've done, but we've got to go in a different direction now. That's one way to say it. That's cliche. Um, the other thing is, you know, the two times that I did it, one time I was pretty harsh because it was really obvious the guy was not, he just was losing it. I just told him, look, you can either resign in 2 weeks or I can fire you, but I'll leave it up to you to decide how you want to do that. So he resigned. That was real simple. That was, don't give him too many choices. The other one was, I just basically, we had an off the record, heart to heart talk. And I could do that with this particular employee because I felt that we had a good friendship.
Yeah.
I don't know how the friendship's going to go now, whether he'll never talk to me again or whatever. But I realized he did not agree with how I was managing the practice. Mm-hmm. Everybody else seemed to be okay with it, but maybe I'm delusional, who knows? But when I told my management team about what he had said about everything, they were so angry. One of them said, he does not speak for me. Because he said that use the word, everyone feels the same way that I do. And I looked at him and I go, really? Have you talked to everyone? And I know he doesn't talk to 2/3 of the staff. Mm-hmm. So it was weird that when someone gets to that point where they're making up their own story and they're, you know, trying to create a reason why they're going to leave. They, you know, yeah. So I use this line. And everybody, you don't have to use this line. I said, look, this place is not a prison. The door is open. You can leave anytime you want. If this organization isn't enough for you, I'm doing everything I already can. But if it's still not enough, you can go. Yeah. I did not add that I can stay, right. But he ain't going to get me to go, right? So, you know, and so he did the right thing. He left peacefully. There was no fighting at the end. It was just real nice. Yeah. Yeah. And in the end, yeah, you just don't want to have a lot of drama at the end. You just want to have some nice, see you later. I gave him a hug. I said, thanks a lot, you know, gave him his last check, done. Yeah. It's one of the hardest things I've had to do. Yeah. It is.
I didn't get into this. I got into to help people, not to fire them, you know.
Well, but you're breaking up with somebody. It's a breakup too. Right. And maybe 6 months, maybe a year from now, you know, I'll hit them up. Hey, how's it going? You know, I'm actually good friends with a lot of my ex-employees now. Yeah. We actually realize after time goes on, hey, that was fun. Mm-hmm. Or yeah, Alan stood for the right things, or Alan didn't drop the ball on anything. But it took time for people to realize that. Yeah. I mean, I've got 2 ex-wives right now, and we're still friends. I just keep collecting. Yeah. Keep collecting.
Have you ever thought about selling your practice?
Many times. And then with this new thing that just happened, I realized, you know, if I am to sell it, I am thinking I'm going to work it out with my employees. Mm-hmm. I think I'm going to be done sooner than they will. And whether it's because of health reasons or because of, you know, just life transitions and things. I mean, I'm definitely going to have to focus elsewhere. I mean, my son's getting married. I might have some grandkids. I definitely want to look at what the next chapter of my life is going to look like, right? I don't know. I didn't tell you. I'm engaged again to be married. Yeah, third time's a charm. Yeah. Third time's charm. And so you know, it's so my thing is my life's transitioning once again. Yeah. But with all these changes, I realize how much I love treating patients. Yeah.
Your daughter, is she a physical therapist?
My daughter is a chemical engineer. She works for Big Pharma.
Oh, she went to Berkeley. She went to Berkeley, and then she did something else. Okay.
Yeah, so she's she actually lives in the East Coast, but she might be coming back. Yeah. She might be coming back here. Okay. So
for a moment, I was thinking like, did she go to PT school? But no, I don't think.
None of my kids followed my my path, and that's okay too. You know, that's the other thing.
High school when I was out there, weren't they?
I know they're adults now, and they're somewhat functional.
They're not living at home.
No.
Okay.
Not now.
If they're not living at home, they can.
Well, I live with my mom. That's when the date's not going well. You know, I live with my mom. When the date's going well, I live in my farmhouse in my vineyard.
That's so awesome. Let's see. I think there was one other thing I want to ask you about before we kind of wrap up. We talked about this already, and this is what you're saying. you're at the end stage of building wealth, right? Can you talk about some of the things that you did early on to start building wealth, and why is it important for us to, like what is wealth versus just like a paycheck and or the money in the bank, and why is it important for us to do it, and what are some of the things that you did to get started?
Well, you're talking to a guy who likes to make money and spend it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think I'm like Mr. Saver at all. But that said, everything that you do, including your home, is an investment.
Yeah.
If you take good care of your house, it'll sell when you time. If you have to sell it, it'll sell well because it's been well maintained. If you and that's what I do. I have my farmhouse and place up in Talmadge. I put so much money into really, really making it nicer than it ever was. And the previous owner and I are still friends. And he comes back and goes, "Wow, look what you did." And I'm building on the foundation that previous owner had put in. The guy was a master craftsman. Now, if you have a business, it's the same thing. Make your business, put all the money back in your business and make it really, really good. So if you have to sell it, it's in great shape. And the same thing with my cars and everything I own. I always try to make it really make sure they're in great shape, well maintained. So if I have to sell it, it goes to the next owner will be really grateful that they got something that was in great shape. So that's one way I move my money around. And of course, investing. Some people invested in stocks and they've done very, very well, especially if you invested way early on. Like let's say your timing just happens to be good, and not everybody's timing is great. But if let's say you had money and when things tanked after March of 2020, you bought all the stock, you'd be 5 times richer now.
Yeah.
But how would anybody know, right? You have to have money set aside. You'd have to really believe in doing those kinds of things. So the stock market's always good. Always plunk money in your 401k. If you got a 401k plan, we have a 4% matching plan at the clinic. That's another kind of a way to rewarding our employees. And so dump money in that. So, as much as you can save and invest, and 401k is kind of an investment. A home is an investment, and I'll tell you, it's been really tough for my employees in the Bay Area. I mean, you had a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house in a 5,000 square foot lot for 1.2 million, and then it goes up to 1.5 after the bidding war.
Yeah.
So your house poor. You put all your money into the house, and you can't even buy a new toilet when you're done because you're putting so much money on the mortgage itself. Yeah, so that's why my practice. Someone says, "Oh, why don't you expand?" I said, "There's no such thing. I'm going to circle the wagons, have as much money for my employees to be able to not just survive but thrive a little bit. But in the long run, if they're making multimillionaires every day in the Bay Area because of all the .com stuff that's still going on.
Right.
So every time there's a big stock, initial public offering, the receptionist makes $5 million at the startup, and they're more than happy to stick another $200,000 down on a house to beat everybody else out.
Yeah.
So
I know the Bay Area is a lot different than when I was there working with you, because it was so much different when I was there working with you than it was when I had lived there 6 years prior to that.
Yeah, my whole block where my mom lives is being basically bought out by every single person who works at Google and Facebook and you name it right now. And they spend, another $250,000 redoing the entire house before they move in. So, it's great for the neighborhood, right? But I was like, wow. And my mom's property, since she bought it in the 1970s, has probably gone up 2,000%, just out more than that even. Probably like 3,000. It's just stupid. It's stupid, crazy. Yeah. So what do you do?
Right.
I'm okay.
Are you moving out here to retire and buy a house down the street from me for half a million?
Yeah.
Get like 8,000 to 6,000 square feet.
I think I might try to get something on this island, Kauai, because at least the air is not bad.
Right.
So. I don't know if I could afford it, get something here and then fly back and forth and rent the house out the rest of the time and go back and forth. When it's wildfires are bad, I'll just come over here. But it's this weird thing where I have to figure out, what am I going to do, you know, for the future?
Yeah.
What's my happy ending going to look like, right?
Yeah. Do you know what
And
the next 5 years look like?
next 5 years will be work. I'll be working to try to set up the business so that whoever is working with me who wants to inherit the business
Yeah.
will not sabotage it in 1 month.
Right.
Because remember, we talked about leadership,
Yeah.
right? And if they're trying to lead it in a way that's selfish and it's not following my philosophy, those people they'll find another place to work.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Because the people remaining will have homes. And if you have a house in the Bay Area, people will be able to hire you from somebody else because at least you could stay there. I mean, that's the other thing. So they have to, even if they can't, if it's not in their inherent nature to be kind and generous, they better learn really fast to fake it well.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way you could lead in the Bay Area from here on out.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I know.
Oh
Yeah.
man. What do you think? Like, I don't know. Like, I do know, but I'm trying to figure out the best way to ask. Like, what is our industry as physical therapists? Like, what do we need? I mean, because like, what do we need to do to change to be like? Why aren't we part of the conversation on NPR when they're talking about opioids? I mean, what is it we actually need to do to like do something different? Is it our industry? Is it us as individuals? What do you see for like the future of our profession? Because PTs getting out of school right now are like $200,000 in debt, and they're like, I can go somewhere and earn $80,000 and pay this off.
Yeah, we need probably more Aaron LeBauers.
Thank you.
Outspoken. You got to get out there and talk. Most PTs aren't into sitting there. They just want to be a PT and actually, honestly, most collect a check and they don't want to make any waves. And I'll give you an example. I was at a John Muir doctor meeting. I was invited along with everybody, all the doctors. Mm-hmm. Guess how many PTs showed up?
You.
And me, and me, and me. That's all. There was 150 doctors in the room and one physical therapist. And what were they talking about? Opioids and using physical therapy instead of opioids. Mm-hmm. And they said how great the physical therapy literature was, because these guys know how to write papers. Wow. And he pointed at me. He goes, he knew I was the only physical therapist in the crowd, and he goes, we should be sending everybody to you and screw this drug thing, because we're just screwing up all our patients. And the reason why the doctors got corralled into this thing, the doctors were actually punished. The board would punish them for not prescribing enough opioids. Wow. So they had the doctors coming and going, I didn't even know this. So you can't blame the doctors. And then the doctor's saying, one doctor says, I'm going to quit. This is too much. One thing they're telling me that I have to prescribe. And the next thing, we're going to get in trouble if we prescribe. And I went up to her directly. I said, do not quit. We need doctors like you because you have a conscience. So do not quit. And so I realized that we have a voice too, and that people respect. We are getting a lot of respect now, finally, but we have to ask for that respect. Mm-hmm. And I'm very collegial with many of my doctor friends. We work together on everything. So, but I'm old as you know what. I won't say it on your podcast. So I could say and do what I want, and you know what? I'm still respectful, and if I have a name in the community, I'll use that continuously, and really, really try hard to make sure that the community knows I'm still involved, and I'm on my game. That's so great. Best marketing is a great job, right?
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
It is. It truly is.
Results speak for yourself, hopefully. But
and the happy patients.
Yeah, happy patients. We can let it speak for itself, but we have to actually not be afraid to shout about it too.
Yeah, and it depends. I mean, I want to grow in reputation always, but there's a certain point where I can't work 80 hours a week anymore. Mm-hmm. My thing is I'm spread thin. I'm also taking care of remember my mom. Yeah. She's 88 now, and she's got a little forgetful. So I'm living with her part-time, and then I live with Annie and her mom up at north. So I go back and forth. So I have a very busy life, but ultimately I wouldn't have it any other way, Aaron. You know me.
That's awesome. I know. I know you're a different breed than most, but So are you. We're gonna keep praising each other. I know, that's awesome. Alan, for anyone listening, is there anything else that I didn't ask you about, or that you think is important for someone else who's a physical therapy business owner that they should know about?
Don't get distracted with the financial part of it too much. I mean, that's what happens. I think when I went off target is because the money became more important than the patient. And I think that happened for about a year, and that really threw me off. So you got to be true to yourself, be secure with who you are and what you represent. I know it sounds trite, honestly, but if you could stick to that, you'll be fine. But if you start to lose your mojo about yourself and your confidence, then it's doom, just doom. So believe in yourself. And I know that sounds like, yeah, everybody says that, but no, you actually have to practice that, and then you'll be fine. Well, you do. I mean, look at you. So there you go.
Thanks.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, it was just sharing what I know and not being afraid to speak up and ask questions and challenge, the authority. You're like, God, that's not.
But you're the authority now.
Well, maybe now.
Challenge yourself.
I have to do that sometimes. I have to challenge me.
We all have to.
Me the best person is Andra, my wife.
Oh, well, she's amazing.
Yeah.
Everybody should have a wife like her.
I know. Well, there's only one of her, and I get to keep her. So.
Well, that's why you're lucky. You're fortunate. I had to keep swapping.
Dude, it's been so awesome having you on the show. If someone wants to learn more about your business or something, like if there's a student listening and they're like, I want to go to the Bay Area, or other PTs want to check out your practice, or someone wants to check out what you're doing, in your spare time, what's the best place for them to come and find you online?
They should just, here's my Gmail. It's ALLENLLING61 That's Alan L. Ling 61 at Gmail. And they could just email and say, hey, I listened to your podcast at LeBauer, could be the title. And I'll respond. I know if I don't respond within a week, I'm dead. If I don't respond, typically I'm good about 24-hour response time. So
yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. And it's I want to shout you out. The business is PT Innovations in El Cerrito. So you don't have the Orinda or Oakland location anymore?
Oakland is still on life support right now, but there's a lot. There were so many transitions going on, and now people are unfortunately getting held up at gunpoint in Oakland. So my thing is, I want to just not in the patients, but it's Chinatown and it's moving. I just don't like it's kind of exposing my staff or patients to that kind of thing, and we're going to bug out.
Yeah,
it's just
I can see you have the dopest dojo over there.
I know, it's pretty cool, but the dojo's still cranking. They're still working out there. So, but like I said, lots of things run its course, and when it's done, you got to know we got to know when to quit. Yeah. Also.
Yeah, that's for sure. Oh, and it's Gen 7 Comics?
Comics. Yeah. And so, but better close your eyes. Some of them are XXX comic books. So
not safe for work.
Not safe to open up at work. Or if you have your own, that's the thing about being your own boss, you can open them up at work.
Whatever you want to at work.
Yeah, exactly. Just shut the door.
That's right. Don't even look over your shoulder or have it on the background in Zoom.
Yeah. Don't project it on the screen.
Airplay by accident. Okay. Alan, thanks so much for being here. Dude, this is awesome. I'm looking forward to actually seeing you in person sometime soon. I think as soon as we get Elena vaccinated, then our travel opens up a lot, and we're due for a California.
I can't wait to see your kids and how much they've grown. So yeah. So, all right, I love you, Aaron. I love you, and I miss you. Always thinking about you, and I thank you for having me on your show, man.
Absolutely, man. Love you too. And hey, guys, this is the CashPT Lunch Hour podcast. This was an interesting episode, wasn't it? If you got anything out of this show, if you picked up even one helpful thing, I'd love to know about it. So do me a favor, go to Instagram. You could screenshot this show on your phone, whether it's YouTube or iTunes or wherever you're listening. But throw up an Instagram story, tag me. I'll make sure Alan sees it. I think are you on Instagram?
Sometimes,
yeah. So tag me. You can try to tag Alan, but just let me know what you learned. What is the one thing that you picked up? Because I'd love to know some feedback. And you know what? You could even leave a 5-star rating and review on iTunes and just drop in, hey Aaron, this is what I learned from your show. I totally appreciate that. Appreciate hearing from you guys. And we'll see you on the next episode. Get out there, lead from the front, and build your wealth and keep on trucking. We'll talk to you soon.